This resource video will provide you with an overview of the Title I Part A Campus Written Parent and Family Engagement Policy requirement being monitored as part of the 2021-2022 random validation process being conducted by the Federal Program Compliance Division. Each LEA selected to participate in the random validation process for the Title I Part A program has been provided with the name of one Title I Part A served campus. The LEA will be responsible for submitting the documentation requested for only that one particular Title I Part A served campus. Keep in mind that documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with program requirements, LEAs should refer to the Title I Part A program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for this submission during the random validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. The program requirement being validated is a Campus Written Parent and Family Engagement, or PFE, policy. The Every Student Succeeds Act, also referred to as ESSA, states that each school served under Title I Part A shall jointly develop with and distribute to parents and family members of participating children a written parent and family engagement policy, agreed upon by such parents, that shall describe the means for carrying out the requirements of subsections C through F. Parents shall be notified of the policy in an understandable and uniform format and, to the extent practicable, provided in a language that parents can understand. The LEA will need to submit 2 items of documentation related to this requirement. The documentation required for PFE Item 1.1 is a Campus Written Parent and Family Engagement Policy. The LEA will need to submit the relevant page or pages of the current school year Campus Parent and Family Engagement Policy that references the description of the method or methods of policy distribution and the language or languages in which the policy was distributed to parents and family members of participating students. Please do not submit the Campus Written PFE policy in its entirety. Only submit the relevant pages that are referenced here in the acceptable documentation. For PFE Item 1.1, there are several issues that may result in the LEA receiving an improvement needed status. The LEA should be aware of these potential issues as they prepare their documentation for submission. Potential issues include that the auditable documentation requested was not submitted. Another potential issue is that there is no method of distribution written in the policy that was submitted for review. Another potential issue is that there is no reference to the languages in which the policy was distributed in the policy that was submitted for review. Finally, another issue is that documentation submitted does not meet the statutory requirements for the campus written policy. If the campus is submitting the policy in its entirety, it is strongly recommended that the campus ensure that the policy includes all the statutory requirements. Although we are only requesting the section of the policy that includes the method of distribution and the languages in which the policy was distributed, if a campus submits the policy in its entirety, we are required to review the policy in its entirety for statutory compliance if it is submitted. The documentation required for PFE Item 1.2 is evidence of policy distribution to parents and family members of participating students. The LEA will need to submit the relevant page or pages of the evidence of policy distribution to parents and family members of participating students. The LEA must submit current school year documentation for only one method as identified in the policy that is utilized to distribute the campus-written PFE policy to parents and members of participating students. Here are some examples of acceptable documentation for various methods of policy distribution. Again, this is a friendly reminder that the LEA should submit current school year documentation for only one method. Examples include student handbook. If the student handbook is a method that the campus used to distribute the policy, the LEA can submit the relevant pages of the student handbook that include the campus-written PFE policy. If the campus website is the method that the campus used to distribute the policy, the LEA can submit a printout of the campus website where the most current policy is posted and the link to access the document. If direct mail is a method that the campus used to distribute their policy, the LEA can submit a copy of the letter accompanying the policy distributed to parents via direct mail, or the documentation that is required to be maintained as per local policies and procedures. If email is the method that the campus used to distribute their policy, the LEA can submit a copy of the email that was sent out that includes the email header, which would include the to, from, CC, subject, and attachments, or the documentation that is required to be maintained as per local policies and procedures. If newspaper publication is the method that the campus used to distribute the policy, the LEA can submit a newspaper clipping or printout referencing the policy being published in a newspaper. If distribution of any of these events is the method that the campus used to distribute the policy, the LEA can submit documentation that is required to be maintained as per local policies and procedures. For the PFE Item 1.2 documentation, there are several issues that may result in the LEA receiving an improvement needed status. The LEA should be aware of these potential issues as they prepare their documentation for submission. Potential issues include that the auditable documentation requested was not submitted. Another potential issue is that the documentation submitted does not align to the method of distribution and language or languages described in the policy that was submitted for PFE Item 1.1. Another potential issue is that prior year documentation was submitted instead of current year documentation. And finally, another issue is if a campus submits the web link as their method of distribution and the web link is not working or broken. The campus should also ensure that the current year policy is posted on the campus website if that is the method of distribution. If a campus references posting the policy in other languages, the website should also provide the policy in such languages. This concludes the presentation of information for this program requirement. If you have any questions, please contact us via telephone at 512-463-9310 or via email at essasupport@tea.texas.gov.